Hi, everyone. Good evening. It is very late. I understand. It's 10:30 LA time. But I wanted to have a quick chat before the trial begins tomorrow. Let me know if for some reason you don't hear me. I am always pleasantly surprised if I'm on. So tonight I wanted to cover the Gwyneth Paltrow case because it's starting tomorrow in Park City. And I think a lot of people were waiting to see if it would settle, but it does seem like it's going to go on. I heard that jury selection has already happened. I did not know this when I did my live yesterday, but jury selection happened on Friday. Actually, before we go into that, I apologize. Let's do a little bit of background because there are some of you who might not know about this case, because as of a few days ago, I did not know about this case. And today, all of a sudden, every single news outlet is covering this because I think everybody was assuming this case was going to settle because it often settles. And it does not seem like it because Miss Paltrow is not going to let this go. So what happened was in 2016, you heard me right, 7 years ago, when Gwyneth Paltrow was skiing at Deer Valley in Park City, this retired doctor by the name of Terry Sanderson claims that he heard this loud scream, and then Gwyneth Paltrow plows into him. He is severely injured. He is knocked unconscious for 5 to 6 minutes. He claims that no one helped him. He claims that when he came to, the ski instructor who was with Miss Paltrow at the time, screamed at him. And she basically skied away without checking on him. And he suffered a concussion, brain injury, 4 fractured ribs, and many other medical injuries that he has suffered for the last few years, having to deal with being tired all the time, not being able to think clearly like he used to be. And so he filed a lawsuit in 2019. I think right before the statute of limitation. I'm guessing the statute of limitations in Utah is 3 years because he filed, I think, a few days before it turned 3 years. And he claimed, his original claim in his complaint was that it was like a hit and run, right? That she hit him, she left the scene and didn't check on him. And that none of the Deer Valley ski resort personnel or instructors checked on him either. This case has apparently been in the courts for a while because the judge dismissed his original $3.1 million complaint because he didn't accept the hit and run concept, right? He did not believe that she did hit him and walked off. She claims that she checked on him. And then he dismissed the resort, Deer Valley, and its employees because there's an inherent risk when you're skiing, right? So hi to everyone coming in. Please let me know where you're coming in from. I always like to know where you guys are, especially since it's so late. I wonder if I have any international people watching right now. So then what is so interesting is Gwyneth Paltrow has countersued him because her story is that, okay, so the law in Utah is on the slopes when you're skiing, whoever is downhill has the right of way, which makes sense, right? Because when you're downhill, you can't see who's coming in behind you. So Gwyneth Paltrow has sued and claims that she was the one who was downhill and that he plowed into her. So this is really a kind of, a case of he said, she said. Now, the ski instructor, his name is Eric Christensen, states that he saw the crash and that Sanderson crashed into Gwyneth Paltrow. Sanderson is saying that he has a friend who saw the accident and states that Sanderson was downhill. Now, this trial is going to start tomorrow. The jury has already been selected. In Utah, it is a jury of 8 people. They selected 10. 2 of them are alternates, but I guess what happens is all 10 go into the jury and they get to hear the entire case. And they actually don't know which 2 are the alternates. And it was a very interesting process because what they did was they did the voir dire and the jury selection through WebEx, like a Zoom system for the courts. And, there were reports that there was one juror who was in scrubs and had a face mask on. So it's very interesting because we potentially have a medical personnel, maybe a doctor, and this would be very interesting because it's a medical case. And I see a lot of people coming in from San Francisco and LA. Hi there. Yes. There, the claim is he got 4 fractured ribs. So I'm sure he has all the medical bills to support his claims, right? And it has to be close in time, right? He has to prove that Gwyneth Paltrow, if she was indeed the one who hit him from behind, that those injuries happen right on the day of the incident. As a doctor, I would imagine he went to and received care, and he probably has medical records showing that he was injured on that day. So Gwyneth Paltrow countersues him, and she is suing for $1. That's right, because this is just about clearing up her reputation, right? Because who wants to be known as the actress who left an old man? He was 69 at the time. I think he's like in his 70s now, like 76. Who wants to be known as the actress, the Hollywood star, that would actually leave an old man injured behind and not check on him? So I think she is countersuing. She refuses to settle, right? Because remember, when you settle, you are admitting fault, right? And this is why Alec Baldwin has not taken a plea bargain. We all have expected him to take a plea bargain, but he states, that he was not at fault. He's gone on many interviews and stated that he doesn't feel guilty, which still makes me cringe whenever I hear that, because how could you not feel guilty? I think any person would feel guilty for taking the life of another person, as he did when he accidentally shot Helena Hutchins on the set of Rust. So she refuses to settle because Sanderson, the plaintiff, has reached out and offered to settle, and she refuses. So now his complaint is one of negligence, and his request for damages is $300,000. I think it's, he's claiming 7, I don't know. He's claiming that he suffered permanent damage, permanent, injury for the injuries that happened. 300,000 actually seems kind of low to me, but we'll see. I actually heard a report today that he potentially is asking for $2 to $7 million to as rewards, maybe for for emotional suffering. Good thing for Gwyneth Paltrow, because punitive damages have been taken off the table, because the judge a few years ago, when he dismissed the other claims, the hit and run claims, he took punitive damages off the table. So now, if she wins more money, right? If the facts come out that he has a meritless claim, that he was actually the one who was uphill from her, maybe the jury might award more money. And in that case, she has stated that she would submit that to, she would give that to charity. Let me see. What are you saying, Smalls? They did it virtually. I don't know. It's very interesting. I thought that, we saw the Alec Murdoch trial, and the jury there was the jury selection. I remember they had like 800 jurors come in, and that was all in person. So it's interesting that they're doing it virtually. I'm not quite sure why. Maybe this is just how Utah is still doing it. So Gwyneth Paltrow, some attorneys have, there are just, every case in the news right now is covering this case. Sorry, every news channel is covering this case right now, because I think everybody didn't think it was going to go forward. Everybody assumed that this was going to settle, because most of the time, I was thinking about this today. Working in Hollywood, I hear about so many cases. I've worked for big studios and production companies, and so many things happen, and it gets just swept under the rug, and no one ever hears about it. That's why when I cover the Try Guys story, which was my third video that went viral, I was so impressed by the way they handled the Ned Fulmer situation, because they didn't have to come out and say what they said. They said that this is against our values, that he's no longer part of the company. I was really impressed by them. I mean, it was a very well scripted message from, I'm sure, their crisis PR firm, but it was still well done, because I will say, in Hollywood, most companies, most principals are not allowed to come out and give statements the way they did. So, Libby, what are you saying here? Don't the PR teams of celebrities usually want to settle to not have the public trial? Interesting. She wants the exact opposite. Well, what's interesting is Gwyneth Paltrow has testified in the past, right? I don't know if you guys remember, but she had a stalker for like over 10 years. And back in 2016, when her stalker went on trial, she actually testified against him. And the attorneys who heard her in court have come out and given interviews in the last few days, saying that she's very poised, she's very professional, and she comes off very credible. Some of them mention how beautiful she is. I don't know how relevant that is, but there it is, right? They're saying that she is very beautiful, incredible, and that's what this case is going to come down to, right? The docket has set aside 8 days, which I was a little surprised about, because I don't know why they would need 8 days. That sounds like they're expecting a lot of witnesses. I would imagine it would take 2 to 3 days, because all you really need is the ski instructor who claims to be one witness, right? And Sanderson's friend, who's the other witness, and potentially Sanderson himself and Gwyneth Paltrow might testify. Maybe they'll have some medical experts, maybe some other experts who might testify. It just seems long to have 8 days. So this is ultimately going to come down to a question of who's credible, right? I would imagine that there might be some digging that both sides have done on the witnesses who claim that they were the eyewitness, right? I think there is some question mark as to, well, is this ski instructor who is on Gwyneth Paltrow's side, right? How reliable is he? Is he more reliable because he is an expert? Because he's on the slopes every day. This is what he does for a living. He's an expert at seeing how people go down, up and down the slopes. There was also some mention that this point where they hit each other might have been like where the bunny slope, the beginner slope and like the advanced slope like crossed. So there might be a question of like, well, who's downhill and who's uphill when they cross each other? So perhaps experts will testify to that. Lisa, so your question is, if he has a brain injury, does he still have to testify? So I think you're thinking about like Tom Girardi, right? Like this idea of competency. And that really is more for the defendant, right? The person who is at fault for something, right? Because he's the plaintiff, I think it will be fine. Now, you make a good point, right? They might, Gwyneth's team might have experts that state, well, because he was knocked unconscious, as he says, because he was out of it for a while, maybe he doesn't remember the facts correctly, maybe because of his brain injury, he's not a credible witness. So I think there's something to that, not quite in the way, the incompetency of a defendant who might have dementia like Tom Girardi. Lisa, you're asking, do they sign liability waivers? I don't know if you're talking about my video that I just did about skiing liability waivers, but yes, I think they probably did. I think that's why the lawsuit against the ski resort has been dismissed. They were dismissed as defendants because I think they signed that liability waiver. Now, that doesn't excuse the negligence of other skiers on the slopes, right? Because it's not like Gwyneth Paltrow made everybody around her sign liability waivers, so that they wouldn't crash into her. I don't think that's what happened here. So she probably doesn't have a liability waiver that releases her, right? So right now we are down to just negligence, right? And negligence has 4 elements. And it basically, I'm going to go back to my notes from yesterday because I cover this in my live yesterday. And basically, there are 4 elements to negligence, right? They have to prove, right, that these 4 elements are all present to prove that Gwyneth Paltrow or that the Sanderson was at fault, right? Like who was negligent. So you have basically one is a legal duty, right? To ski carefully, basically. That's your legal duty. 2 is there's a breach or violation of that duty of care. 3 is plaintiff suffered an injury. And 4, that breach of duty by defendant caused the injury to plaintiff, right? And there's an idea of comparative negligence because it's like a car accident, right? If you have 50% negligent, then neither party will win anything. But if one was less than 50% negligent, then they can recover some money. But I think when you really think about it, if the jury believes one eyewitness over the other, then I think you have your verdict. Because if they believe that Sanderson was downhill and Gwyneth Paltrow ran into him, then she's negligent. If it's flipped and that Gwyneth Paltrow was downhill. Now she claims, right, that she was hit, but that her injuries were slight. She just didn't ski for the rest of the day and she just rested and she didn't really have any substantial injuries. Now, Tom, hi there. You asked, how could she hit him if she had her kids in front of her? I don't know. I think there's a theory that her kids were going down. So Sanderson's claim was that she was distracted. And I don't know how he comes up with this because I think that in the moment he meets her, right? Like he claims that she crashed into him and knocked him unconscious. So I'm not quite sure how he would know she was distracted, which makes a good point. Maybe she was in front of him so that he was able to see that she was distracted. So there's an idea that maybe her kids were going down. She was distracted by, maybe they were falling down or something. She got distracted and then she plowed into him, like not paying attention. That's one theory, right? That the plaintiffs could argue. And let's see. Sorry, let me have these notes everywhere. Okay, so, and there was this other interesting question that they asked the jury, which was if they knew of Gwyneth Paltrow and knowing that she's a celebrity, could they give her a fair chance? Could they treat her fairly? And I think everybody on the jury raised their hand saying that they knew who she was. But there was this one female juror who was like in her early 20s stated that she didn't know who she was, which was interesting. Maybe, Gwyneth Paltrow hasn't acted in a long time. She's, I think, just turned 50. I think she is of another generation, but she is an Academy Award winning actress. She has her very, very famous Goop brand. I live in LA, so I have certainly bought food from Goop Kitchen, and I have to say the miso salmon that she has is delicious. So I will say that she is very good at curating and creating food. Now, I don't know if you guys heard about this controversy that she is under right now. Like last week, apparently she shared her diet, I guess, what she eats every day, and she shared that she eats or she drinks bone broth and vegetables. So she has come under fire because the claim, right, is that she is a role model to a lot of young women, but maybe not, right? I mean, Emily, you're saying that Gen Zs like aren't familiar with her. So maybe that's true. I mean, or maybe she, influences women in their 20s and 30s. Yes. I mean, Tom, the name of her brand is Goop. Apparently the story I heard was that she had like a market research firm research names for her. And apparently if you have a name with 2 O's in it, it makes it more popular. People are more receptive to that name. And so it's the G and the P at the end, her initials, and the O in the middle. So that sort of is the update that I have for now. I mean, my goal, I don't know if, there are a few of you here, like my goal is to do a recap of the trial every night because I work during the day, so I can't do it during the day. But if you guys are interested, I can do a recap at night. It probably won't be this late. I mean, tonight I really just decided very last minute that I was going to do this, but maybe I'll do it like 8:30, 9 o'clock. I'll give her, a quick recap on what happened during the day. I really wanted to do that for the Alec Murdaugh case, but I think I was just too destroyed. Like I was too devastated over the idea that a father could murder his son that I just couldn't do it. Like I just couldn't like cover it every day. And it was a very complicated trial. I mean, it was 6 weeks. They had all these experts and I was just like, I couldn't watch every minute of it. So I didn't feel like I could give a very thorough recap of that trial. So I'm happy to do that. I'm working on my Lucasfilms video that's going to come out maybe in the morning, and my $1 billion lawsuit against the financial YouTubers. And so my take on that video is actually a little different from everybody else because there's one person from that lawsuit that has not been talked about by CoffeeZilla or anybody else, and that's Erica Kohlberg. I don't know if you guys know who she is, but she is also a lawyer on YouTube. I actually feel an affinity to her because she's like the only other Asian female attorney YouTuber out there. She has a series called Erica Taught Me This. I mean, I love those, right? Like she teaches you how to go to the airline counter and say, because you kicked me off this flight, I'm entitled to like $800. And the counter person will say, how do you know that? And it's like, she plays like herself and the person. It's kind of funny. And she's like, well, Erica taught me that. So it's very interesting because she's an attorney. I think she has a higher duty of care when it comes to promoting crypto and FTX, and her agency that she created called Creator Agency is the one that represents a lot of financial creators. So I actually met her at Vid Summit last year around September. It's actually a great story because I think at this time I had only 2 or 3 videos. I had 280 subscribers. And she was very nice. She met with me and she talked with me, and she gave me some advice and kind of encouraged me to keep going. And I saw that she was with Graham Stephan, who is her like a friend and a client of hers at the agency. And I went home that weekend and I made the Try Guys video because the keto twins who I met there gave me the idea, and it was, and that my 3 Try Guys videos was what got me to 10,000 in like a matter of weeks, which I know in YouTube world is crazy. But of course I've been stuck at 20,000, like 19,975 for the last 6 weeks. So I've been eating some humble pie because I was like celebrating a few weeks ago. I think the creative process is so hard. I was watching an interview from Steven Pressfield. He wrote the Art of War, the War of Art, about the creative process. And it really just reminds me like how you just have to keep pushing on. And I love Alex Hormozy. I don't know if you guys know who he is. Like he was just like, most of the time people stop right when it gets hard. And so I'm at that point right now where I just kind of want to stop. But I think I'm going to wrap up unless there's anything you guys want to talk about. Are there any legal cases or anything that you guys would like to discuss before we go? Because I'm kind of a night owl. I tend to like go to sleep at midnight or later. Anything like you guys want to talk about or want me to cover in future videos? I'm always looking for ideas. So I've recalibrated my channel to kind of go back to where I was in like 3-4 months ago, where I'm going to cover stories faster and with shorter videos, like maybe 8 to 10 minutes. Because I don't know if you guys saw from my Logan Paul and my Alec Baldwin videos, I decided to take 2 to 3 weeks doing deep dives and lots of research and lots of time editing. And then by the time I released it, it was already old. And so that didn't work. So I have to like kind of go back to what worked for me. I don't know. I got this story in my head that in order to elevate my channel, I needed to do deeper videos. And I don't think that's true. I think I just need to get to the story as quickly as possible and give my perspective on it as a Hollywood attorney. Let me see some of your Scientology. That's interesting. I mean, is there if you want to pump up do a review of Scientology billion-year agreement with the growing up in Scientology. Okay, I'll look into that. I'm always interested. I mean, some of these things, you guys bring me ideas and stories that I don't even know about. Emily, creative process takes a lot of mental energy. I'm a designer, so it takes energy and focus, but love you doing this and sharing your point of view from a law to entertainment perspective. Well, thank you so much. Some of you might know my story that I went to undergrad at Berkeley as an English major, and I really, really wanted to be a novelist. And then I decided to be practical and go to law school to take care of my parents, because as an immigrant and the oldest, I wanted to take care of my parents and my younger siblings. And so I went to law school, wanted to be a DA. That was like my dream job. And ended up in entertainment. It's a long-winded story. I'm actually doing my why I went to law school video, so look for that. And I'll talk about that a little bit. But now, 17 years later, I felt like I really needed to live my dream of having a creative process in my life. And so I decided to do probably one of the hardest challenges out there, which is creating a YouTube channel, right? And it is sometimes such a mind F. So, but I'm still here and I love it. And I'm going to try this, every night live with you guys, because this is like really fun just to chat with you guys. And it's great because, there aren't like thousands of you here. So, stereo nerd. I don't know if you saw my comment on the last live because it was at the end, but I remember you being part of the PTYA cohort, and Ali Abdal always says, focus on input and not output goals. Yes, I did actually comment to you right at the end. I think it didn't make it because it had the live had already ended. That's so cool to see a fellow cohort. So for those of you who don't know, Ali Abdal has this great channel. He is a doctor in the UK. I think he's Cambridge, Oxford, very, very smart. Like he graduated #1 of his medical school, and he created this course called the PTYA, which is the Part-Time YouTube Academy. And it's great for people who are just starting and wanting to create a YouTube channel, but don't know how to do it. So I was part of his cohort 6. I think we're about to start cohort 8. I started it last year in July, and literally it took me 2 months to make like 2 videos because I'm such a type A perfectionist. I basically just kept procrastinating and giving myself reasons why I shouldn't, put out videos. And yes, I mean, I know I need to just like stop staring at my subscriber count but I'm very goal orientated. I like goals, like I had this dream when I first started working in Hollywood that if I was ever featured in Variety as a kind of, what do they call it? Like super lawyers or something, then I would feel like I would have made it. And I was featured, I don't know, a few years ago, but it's like that goalpost always keeps moving, right? Because I made it and then I felt like, oh, but I'm like a fraud. So it's very interesting, right? And I know you guys will keep me honest and humble because that goal keeps on moving for me. Okay, Smalls is the latest. What's the latest in the Baldwin case? So yes, so his firearm enhancement, right, that added the 5 years actually has been thrown out, right? I don't know if you guys saw that, but this his lawyers, right? I've said it before. His lawyers at Quinn Emanuel are amazing, excellent litigators. They're probably the best litigators in the country. All those celebrities go to them when they need a litigator, and they were able to figure out that the statute that the Santa Fe DA charged them with was actually not yet in place at the time of the shooting, right? That statute didn't get enacted until 7 months after Helena Hutchins' death. And I'm willing to bet that this piece of law was passed probably in response to her killing. So they figured out that the statute wasn't even in existence when the shooting happened. So the DA dismissed the firearm enhancement. So he's now down to 18 months sentence for the involuntary manslaughter. Remember, he's been charged with 2, but only 1 will, even if he gets convicted guilty of both charges, you can only use 1 of them for sentencing. So he could potentially, if he gets found guilty, right, he might get 18 months. And, maybe he serves 6 months and the rest is in probation. I mean, 18 months is a lot more manageable, right, than 6.5 years. I think 6.5 years was freaking everybody out, like, on his team. So, and then What else has happened? So the special prosecutor, right, Andrea Reeb, who was also on the case, has stepped down. She stepped down a few days ago. I mean, this the I feel like Alec Baldwin's team is really doing an excellent job and winning for Alec Baldwin because they filed a motion with the court saying that she should step down because there's a conflict of interest because she is not only part of the judicial branch, but because she was elected to the House, she is now serving on two branches of the government. And it is a conflict. And I actually would agree with that. And she stepped down before the motion was to be heard by the judge on the 24th. And she said, I don't want to cloud the issues. I don't want to bog down this case. So I'm just going to step down and make this easier for everyone. I believe the Santa Fe DA is maybe trying to find another special prosecutor or, you know, the question I have is why doesn't she prosecute it herself? But I think as the main DA, she has a lot of cases, under her that she has to prosecute. So I don't know. Maybe she will be the prosecutor on the case. So we'll see. Oh, Libby. I mean, that's also all over the news, right? I mean, Trump has stated that he's going to get arrested tomorrow. I'm interested just from an attorney, right? Not making this political because I want to try to keep it neutral. I think a sitting or past president has never been indicted for anything, but Trump has violated a lot of laws and rules. And so I would be interested in seeing what happens this week. I mean, I think if he gets charged, I probably will cover it because that would be really, really big news. Let's see, anything else? Thank you so much, everybody, for your support. This is really fun just to chat with you guys. I want to also, I mentioned somebody was talking about the metaverse. I think the AI is very, very interesting. I mean, I actually started researching a video about doing copyright and art, right? How there are several lawsuits right now, and I can certainly cover that. There are several lawsuits against these AI, I guess they're called programs, right? That gather all of the images on the internet and create art from it. I mean, have you guys gone on these websites where you type in, show me two Jindos playing poker? I have two Jindos. So we have actually done this exercise and it's quite fun, right? And apparently the images of the Jindos are comprised of other images, right, that have been created from other people. And so there are lawsuits against these AI programs stating that it's a copyright infringement because all of the, like, let's say trillions of images that were used to create this new piece of art is actually based on the copyright of other art. I think it's really fascinating, and I probably will be doing a video on that. Tim, I did do a video on the Coburger, and it actually got a lot of views because I think people are very interested in that case. I mean, as a trained coach, I really am interested in human behavior. And I said in that video, I think we all really want to understand like what happened and why, right? And I think that's why I was so like, I couldn't stop looking away from the Alec Murdaugh trial because I wanted to know why. Like, I wanted to know how someone could do this to their own child and wife. And I think it's the same with the Kohlberger, right? Like, how could he like murder a bunch of students and leave the other two, roommates alive? And it's just like we all I think want to know, like, have you ever read like a thriller or a mystery book late at night and you can't go to sleep because you have to finish because you have to know what happen because it freaks you because you can't fall asleep otherwise because it's freaking you out. So yeah, I mean, I think I definitely will be covering the Kohlberger case because I'm interested. Like, so I will, it's rare for me to do a video that I'm not super interested in. I know some of you might be Bravo fans. I mean, I know that this Scandival thing is going on, but I have not. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to offend anybody, but I have not, ever watched Real Housewives. I don't really have never watched Vanderpump Rules, right? Um, but I know, and I might cover it because if there are legal issues, I might cover it. But it's hard for me to just cover things that I'm not interested in, is my point. So there's so many things out there that I could be covering. Darn my full-time job. Let's see. Let me catch a few more. I'm sorry if I'm not catching all of it. Let's see. Uh, let's see. Legality of using ChatGPT for a test. Can the teacher sue the student? Oh, okay. So this is really fascinating. I've been doing research on that. And apparently there is a program that has been created that can catch that a piece of writing was created by AI, because teachers and school districts and universities all over the country and the world know that this is going to be a huge issue, because I have tried out ChatGPT and it's amazing what it can write. Now, it's very limited, right? I mean, it's there was this I saw this news report of a journalist pretending to be like a high school student and doing an essay. I mean, she's an adult. I think people knew who she was, but she pretended to be a student and she was like doing essays. And it's not perfect, because if you don't give it all the information, the program, right, it can't give you all of the information, right? It asks the ChatGPT to write an essay about something, giving it some of the um, information from the book that they were supposed to read, but the essay got the characters wrong and got their motives wrong. It was about like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and they got the characters wrong. So unless you give it all the information, it's never going to replace a human. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you have seen the headlines, oh, you will get replaced by AI or ChatGPT. I don't think so. I think we're far away from that. Although, I always try to not have Alexa on because I always feel like she's listening. ChatGPT wrote you some draft agreements. Lisa, are you an attorney by any chance? That would be interesting. I mean, I was doing a license agreement today. I mean, yeah, you can go onto the internet and find templates to different agreements, right? But unless you know what you're looking for, whenever I'm drafting agreements or negotiating, I have to incorporate what the other side needs, right? And that's what I always say. I love doing transactional work because it's more like a courtship than a divorce, like litigation is, right? I always ask the other side, what do you need? What does your client need? I mean, I typically do actor agreements, director agreements, producer, writer agreements, a lot of actor agreements, because usually a movie will have one director, one or two or three writers, some producers, but the bulk of my time is spent negotiating, drafting actor agreements. And it's always like, what does your client need? And I was working on Gemini Man. Ang Lee, his attorney told me, well, Ang really needs the money for the technology. So then I was able to go to Will Smith's team and say, hey, by the way, Will Smith's team, you're not going to get this many millions of dollars for your perk package because we need to save it for Ang. And when you explain to people what they need, then it's very more palatable and people are willing to help. So like that human factor, I think, can never be replaced by AI or ChatGPT, because I don't know that they can ask those things, right? I don't think they can get to the core of it, of making a deal and knowing what the other side really needs. So that's kind of my take on it. But I think ChatGPT, I mean, I've tried it. I've when I'm trying to come up with ideas for titles for my videos, I've typed in my title that I'm thinking of, and I'll say, can you give me 20 other versions? And actually, I haven't done it in a long time. I did it when it first came out, and I thought it was interesting, but like my videos are so specific, and as an English major, I like playing with words myself, but I might actually do that again. um Say potato. If someone commissions something from an artist or writer and they use AI, who gets to be the author or the owner? Can the writer or the artist be sued because they would be fraud? um Maybe. I mean, if they try to portray it as their own original work, it's possible. But then I think the courts have held that AI programs can't hold copyright, because in order to hold copyright, you have to be a human being. Oh, I think there is case law on that. So that's interesting. Um, okay. So I think I'm going to say goodnight. It's time for bed, but this was really fun. I'll come back tomorrow night after the trial starts for Gwyneth Paltrow and give you guys a recap on what's happening. I mean, I'm really interested in hearing the opening statements, because opening statements are where the lawyers really get to kind of give you a roadmap of where they think, their position is, where they think the case is going to go, what they want the jury to think about as they're listening to the witnesses testify. There are lawyers who are really, really good at it. I mean, if you guys watched the Alec Murdaugh trial, you know that Creighton Waters gave like an amazing, amazing closing that was 8 hours, many, many hours. I can't remember exactly. And then Alec Murdaugh's attorney like finished like in an hour. I mean, it almost seemed like he gave up, to be honest. Like it was almost like he thought, I mean, my guess was that he thought maybe his client was guilty, because once he found out about him being at the kennel, I think the whole defense team just became deflated, and they really like it was like almost like they gave up. Or tell me what you guys think. Like, do you think they like threw the case so that Murdaugh could have a better case at a better chance at appeal? Because it almost seemed like they were trying to let him prove, oh yeah, they had inadequate counsel and defense, and that's why he lost the case. I mean, I think at some point they realized that maybe he was going to lose, and so maybe they just kind of threw it so that they because they knew they were going to appeal. They have already appealed. Is there some crazy world where he might go to have an appeal and win? I mean, I think that's why Crane Waters is really wanting to go forward with the 99 financial crimes against him, right? So before I started doing YouTube videos, I didn't know how big the legal world was, because I was kind of insulated in my Hollywood world of just doing movies and actor deals. But it's actually it's so fascinating. I mean, I'm really expanding my knowledge of every part of the law, because I don't do this every day. Like, I don't cover copyright or AI or learning about firearm enhancements, because that's not my world. But this is really so much fun. Thank you so much for coming along on this ride with me. I am having so much fun, and it's just such a dream come true. So if you haven't subscribed or liked my video, please, do so. It really does help my new channel, and it helps my algorithm. And I always say this: we were born perfect, and sometimes we just forget. And And I hope you guys have a great night or good morning if you guys are in Europe. That's really nice to see. See, if I do it like closer to midnight, then it'll be like 8 a.m. in Europe. And that is cool too. All right, guys, I will, and ladies, I will see you guys tomorrow. Okay. Bye.